Maybe then we should all be aware of what is the thing that would signify that we've lost the plot.
Yeah.
When has success gone to our head?
And I think you need to have mechanisms in place to bring you back almost to that startup phase.
Okay. You can sometimes see that leadership team losing sight of what got them there.
What are the safety valves that you're putting in
Yeah.
that you're going to trigger to say, if I am really successful, and let's hope we all are, how do I keep grounded? How do I stay humble?
And that's where I do wonder that people who put all the hard work, especially maybe they get burnt out and they feel they are deserving of a bit of a break, they do take the foot off the gas and they don't build the next step of the vision, they don't do the next R&D, they don't get the next investment in or take the next risk. Okay, then tell me about...
Are we starting?
We've started already.
Right.
Tell me about, on your journey to work this morning, you have to come across a bridge and you stop and gaze and take in the vista of a building site.
Not any building site, the Smithfield Riverside development.
Opposite our offices.
Opposite our offices.
Which used to be a shopping centre only 18 months ago.
Yeah.
It was razed to the ground. Very artfully, I thought, actually. The way that
it was very...
The demolition people did that, I thought it was very, very clever.
It was like mechanical dinosaurs. I'm sure there was a kids program that used to be mechanical dinosaurs.
So it was like they were eating the building.
But no, it fascinates me.
It disappeared.
It fascinates me. I guess it's kind of linked to what we're talking about today, building things and that type of thing.
Probably 98% of it was recycled as well.
Was it?
Anyway, what are you seeing as you come across the bridge every morning?
Well,
it's getting
exciting actually. I walk over the bridge with my wife and she's thoroughly bored of me getting excited about it. But
looking at the diggers.
Yeah, like a little kid actually. I take videos of them for my mates who got younger children.
That's probably a YouTube channel on its own, isn't it?
But no, it's they've spent a lot of time in the ground, and you're like, what's going on in the ground? Where's this house is all going to come back? You can't see it.
Pouring concrete down
holes.
And
now they are. Oh, that was a good phase. That was when they had the big pile driver in just to get the things in. But anyway, so that was a good bit. But now they're actually things are starting to come out of the ground. So we're seeing the elevator shafts being formed.
Oh, wow.
And it's like giant little Lego things that they all put around the formwork. I could sit there and watch the formwork all day, honestly.
It's artists, aren't they?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. And then you're trying to work out how's this all linked? And so at the moment they're working on the columns. They're going to put some archways in. And so for months I was thinking, what is that concrete formwork doing on the floor? What's that going to be? And then they started putting the rebar in, and I was like, man, I could do a podcast on that building site. You probably get the gist.
You'd have to go on location.
On site, I could be on site.
Film it. Well, before we lose our audience entirely, it does have a theme of building, which we'll link through.
Skillfully weaved in the...
Lucky way you did that. Shall we do an actual proper podcast thing then?
Not about
Let's do that.
Building.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. And it's Rich and me in the studio again this week. And every week we try and come up with something useful or interesting for owners and managers of small and medium-sized enterprises / businesses, depending on which side of the pond you are.
We haven't succeeded yet.
Oh, I see. We're in one of those moods, sorry.
A whimsical
I think
mood.
people can tell what time of day we record the episode at. What are the energy levels like?
That would be interesting, yeah. How far through the week is it?
And how far through the week, yeah. What sort of month are we having? All that stuff. What's the weather like? So we're in one of those moods today. So that's we're together. So episode number, what are we on?
161.
161. No idea on the darts finish on that one. It's got to be
something 19, isn't it? Probably.
17. Sure, it's 50. Well, that's down 110, isn't it? And then triple 20 bullseye.
Yeah.
Triple 17.
There we go.
God. Okay, so 161. So where have we been recently? In time-honoured fashion, the last 3 episodes, please, Mr. Buckle. 160 was?
Well, I was going to work up. So, I was going to go the other way. 158 was the Co-Intelligence book review.
Oh, yes.
Thank you to Yamini at HubSpot for sending that to us.
Which we reviewed in a rare book review moment. That was Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick.
We
still have it on the table.
Still have it on the table. And then the next one was slightly random. for the Valentine's Day episode.
This was not what Meg had in mind.
Valentine's Day. Her face as she watched it, she was like, "This was not what I expected you guys." The path
She came up with this brief, and I think we misinterpreted it.
Yeah, big time. So relationships in business.
Well, that's
and
an
or
interesting
real
discussion.
Real life. There's plenty of relationship experience.
We drew the parallels of courting
around this table
these days, and business.
So relationships in business 159, 160. Why your busy schedule is killing growth. So are we doing too much?
Yeah, it's all your fault. It wasn't. I mean, in retrospect, it didn't sound that fair, did it? But if you're not growing well, it's your fault because you're too busy, and yet you're too busy trying to fix the problem. But that was the point of the podcast.
That's the point. So
that's how we got here.
Listen. 161.
Here we are today. So we're talking about when being successful in itself becomes the problem. Now, there's an interesting one. Now, this was inspired by the BBC Reith Lectures, which come out every year.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you're a regular listener, you heathen. They have a very strong following. And every year they invite a thought leader, writer, whoever, and they give 4 lectures in different cities around the country. And it's all recorded, and it's much listened to on the BBC things. And this year it was delivered by a chap called Rutger Bregman. Now, Rutger Bregman's making a bit of a name for himself, writer, Dutchman. You can't tell from his name. And he happens to be the son of a pastor. And he used to have a lot more religious views than he does now. But he's a social reformer, a wannabe social reformer. And he's trying to build a movement. So he gave these 4 lectures. And after listening to the first 2, I couldn't help think to myself, they would be great topics for one of our podcasts in terms of how they relate to business. It then went slightly more social reformy on the sort of later on the 3rd episode, where he talks about some of his prescriptions for what we should do to change society, which get a bit more controversial. And then in his 4th speech, he talks about AI, which is interesting. We might come back to that one. So the first one was what we call the Age of Monsters, and he talks about the fact that civilizations that have grown very successful, and he talks about the Roman Empire, the Venetian Empire, and then in more modern times even the EU, how they build their success on doing all the right things. They create value, they trade a lot and do that sort of thing, and then suddenly they get so successful and so wealthy that they change their focus, lose that sort of original attachment to what they were there for. And in Venice, for example, they started building very gaudy buildings, and they're making a lot of the show of the bulls and everything else. And they forgot the trade, which is what built them. They used to be the largest trading country in the whole of the Adriatic, of course, and then they gradually became poorer and collapsed. And then the Roman Empire, similarly, well-documented story about how it was so successful across Europe, and then they just decided to eat a lot and lie around in
rotted from within. As most civilizations do.
Exactly. And that's exactly the point.
Collapse from within.
So I thought, does that have a parallel with business? And whilst some of this may be a bit of a caricature in some cases, I think there are some really salutary points, sort of warning messages, really.
Well, those who... I've forgotten what it is now.
You were going to say something really
I was going to say
there. Those who run a business,
those who
gets very big.
Forget history are doomed to repeat it.
I see. That's what you're searching for.
That's what I said. I don't think that's quite right, is it? It's not forget history. It's those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. There we go.
Well, that does make more sense. We should learn from the past and live for the future, etc., etc., etc. Lots of quotes about history. So I think the point I was trying to bring out here for us to discuss today is when a company is struggling, it's absolutely clear what it has to do. It's got to find a gap in the market, a market in the gap. It's got to add value to customers. It's got to be very clear on its value proposition. And it's got to drive relentlessly to reduce waste and deliver value. When you're then largely successful, either suddenly and meteorically, so you haven't had time to get used to it, or it's been over a sustained period of time and therefore you've accumulated a tremendous reserve, then you notice a change in some leaders and not others. We were discussing pre-roll, I think you've called it before.
Pre-roll.
Where we have some examples of the exact opposite. But you notice in some leaders where they almost get, I don't want to choose the wrong word here, but they change their behavior because now the pressure's off. They've quote unquote made it. There's plenty of money in the bank. So they don't have to worry about credit control anymore. And they maybe start pursuing projects that would be more labeled as either vanity projects or ego smoothing than core to the business. So that's where I thought, is that something that we could pick up on? Another thing that was a parallel when he talked about the EU, he was very damning of the EU for an EU citizen. He says, if you look at the main stock markets in America and China, they are value producing industries, and of all the latest growth techs, whether that be cars or AI or software or computers and space rockets, cars, solar panels and so on. And you look at what's the EU got. What's the biggest companies in the EU? And it's not those things. We don't have an AI company. We don't have these monoliths of the growth. We've got fashion and food and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he was saying also what we've got very good at in the EU and in more developed countries is building regulations upon regulations upon regulation, as if we've got bored trying to do other stuff. So we just write regulations about it. The UK tax code is the longest in the world at 22,000 pages long or something. It's almost like we've got bored of actually creating any value. So let's just write a long tax code.
I'm thinking on my feet here, but I know.
Not like you, Mr. No. Normally these episodes are so well thought out.
But no, I know quite a few Americans, and I think they have, and I grew up with a lot of Americans as well. And I think there's a very different approach to risk that we have in particularly the UK and Europe as well. So we have a lot less risk capital, as they would say, in the EU and the UK. But I wonder, linking it back to this, so Europe as a whole, okay, there's been ups and downs, and I include in Europe and the UK now, but the Western Europe in particular has had quite a long time of wealth produced. We stand on the shoulder of giants, don't we? We've got a lot of institutions, we've got a lot of wealth that's been accumulated, we've got a lot of that type of thing, a lot of long-standing thinking. And I wonder whether with the Americans, because they almost had a reset of that European mindset when 400 years ago they had a lot of pioneer mentality, didn't they? We were talking today just about like how do the pioneers get over the Rockies? Imagine looking at the Rocky Mountains and getting there and thinking we've got to get over that to get to the other side. So it's like you've almost got a cultural reset that risk has to be taken. It's hard work, it's hard graft. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the UK and Europe, but it's a slightly different we haven't got that pioneer mentality, have we? It's like, oh, we're all gonna, go to Wales and do something or something. It's like we don't have that mentality. Whereas I think there was almost a reset of that in the American psyche, which is maybe then trickled down into how they think about capital, how they think about investment.
And the people that left largely Europe,
were probably more.
There.
They had the initiative.
If you're going to say, I'm going to get one of these rickety old boats that's probably was sailing boats at the time, and sail across the Atlantic the wrong way into the wind, and get I might die on the way, I'll get scurvy or whatever, I'll get lost. But if I get there, promised land. I mean, they're going to be the braver ones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe, as we found out in the clearances in Scotland, the ones that didn't have any choice. But either way, it's a different type of profile to those that were sat in some sort of 17th century gin den in London, drinking themselves and gambling themselves to death.
Thanks, great granddad.
Exactly. So there's certainly a bit of that about it. We've had it too easy for too long. Yeah. And maybe 500 years too long. Although I'm not saying it was easy for all that time, but during that period, we've certainly done some daft things.
But I think it is interesting. I've always been fascinated by just the meta trends of cultural, like why do we think the way we think today, and how what influences culturally, what informed it through religion, philosophy, science, all of those different streams of thought, the confluence of all of that makes us think how we think today. And I think it is true then, it is true of companies on that more micro scale, obviously influenced by the bigger environment around it.
Yeah, I think we're bringing it down to where's the SME parallel here, but there are some big company examples where this has played out. Nokia famously tried to make a very complex portfolio of products and sort of lost their way and eventually got taken over by Microsoft, didn't they? GE were accused of the same thing. I think Apple, before Steve Jobs came back, they had such a proliferation of products, they'd kind of lost their way and he had to come back and do a bit of reset. More recently, WeWork, for those that have followed that, the co-working space people, that was definitely a meteoric rise. Their share valuation was astonishing. They didn't own a single piece of property. It was a brand they were playing on. And they absolutely got the messaging wrong, as far as I understand it, what they did, and focused on entirely the wrong way of promoting their business. Yeah. And expanded into crashes and all sorts of things.
Well, that became very almost cult-like, didn't it, with the leader whose name I cannot remember.
No, maybe just
whoever he was, but it was not delusions of grandeur, but I think just that when you get that much success that quickly,
I think there's a bit of a cultish thing about it,
and it was very much like this is how we do things, and
I think the way we should maybe do an episode on this is the rise and fall of WeWork, because there's probably some lessons in there. But as I understand it, towards the end, or even for a while, they focused on the fact that this wasn't about coming here to work. This was coming here to have a social life.
We're building community almost, and bring your kid. How do we do school? Because they did school as well, didn't they?
They did.
They started doing schools and stuff. And it was like, right, your whole life is going to be orchestrated.
Well, they did that for that age group. Then they did almost a quasi sort of dating network on the Friday afternoons after work. And there was a party atmosphere after work. So people were buying into it for all sorts of other reasons, and for whatever reason, it overblew and fell down. But anyway, there's these examples at the big companies where things have fallen over. But that's not perhaps quite that drastic for the SMEs that we might see. But think about those companies we've been into where they've had their success sometime in the past, and maybe it was even the previous generation of ownership, where they came up with a great product. And we've seen companies certainly where they've lived for generations off one good product or one good idea, and then they just milked it. They haven't generated any new products. But even if, let's say, in one generation, you have a period of research and development and innovation, and you put a lot of effort into trying and failing lots and learning and eventually coming up with some good things. When you suddenly become successful, that was painful going through that period. That's hard work. So it's tempting to say, right, well, let's not do that anymore. If I had to choose how to spend my time, I'm not going to drive another innovation project. I'm just going to go and apply for the King's Award for Innovation.
I think, exactly. I think it's... But you don't have that. I was reminiscing about this the other day when I went to the sixth form open evening for my daughter, and it was in my old school.
Hence the.
And so I was reminiscing.
Your school has been converted to a sixth form.
Yeah. And I stood in the room where I used to have to stand to get my little pink tatty ticket for free school lunches.
Yeah, is that how it works?
And everyone, it's almost like a shaming thing, really. That's just, all the kids whose families can't afford food, let's make them queue up
to
over
make
here.
it obvious.
Make it obvious. And I stood there and thought, oh, that's interesting. I've not been here for like 35 years, and you kind of all came back, the trauma. I was crying in the corner for 5 hours. I wasn't actually, but no. But what my point is, I can remember that. I know what that's like. And I thought, well, she doesn't know what that's like at all. She's never had that experience.
Your daughter,
she's never had that experience.
She grew up in all this wealth that you created for her.
But
middle class.
Exactly. So, and it's a question. I know we've had this conversation before as well, because you've had a similar sort of story. That how do you impart that almost guttural, emotional level of I know what this struggle is like. That you can't know unless you've been through it.
And no matter how hard that is, I don't think it matters. Even if you're really good at being able to impart it, the recipient of that message, your offspring,
ever felt it.
They don't want to know.
No,
it's not my fault. Don't lay that guilt on me, Dad. You brought me into this world, and okay, we've got this sort of quasi comfortable middle class existence. We've got a roof over our head. We've got 2 cars. We've gone on holiday once a year. It's not my fault that you didn't have those when you were a kid.
Yeah,
get out of here.
Different times.
Let me get on with it. I'm going to go and change the world. They say. But you're right. Therefore, you don't have that same awareness of, well, if you didn't have these things, that would make you work a lot harder.
And I think maybe you even see that in a company. Imagine you've got a company where there's like 3 or 4 people that are at the startup stage, and it's like all hands to the pump, graft. This is what we do, this is what we do. And then it starts getting successful. You start getting bigger, and then maybe there's 10 of you, but you've still got that core of 4 who remember what it was like at the beginning. And then now there's, 30, 40, 50. And each ring is almost its own level of the kind of echo of the past. But
and by the time you get to the next one after that, it just multiplies up.
So I
think there's some stats about the generational problem, which is a different topic. But there's a saying, what is it? The first grow it.
First build it, second sustain it, third generation lose it. Or shirt
sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations.
Yeah.
But the stats are something horrific, aren't they? 70% don't make it through the second generation and 90% third. But and that's a generational handing over the controls. I think that's a subset of what we're talking about here, and a very valid one. I think we could talk about that a lot.
But I would love to see that 10%. I'd love to see who Grandad was, because I reckon those 10% that make it.
Yeah.
Grandad probably put down some pretty good foundations around staying humble, staying real,
Yeah.
in order to keep it going.
Well, we know a granddad in a big client that we used to work for. We have some listeners from there now, and he was certainly a force of nature, wasn't he? And he very much set the values right in the whole family. You know, as new members of the family is married in or were born in, he took his role was to make sure that those values were maintained, and I think they've done well as a result of it in terms of their offspring. But within even I say one generation, one ownership, one leadership team, you can sometimes see that leadership team losing sight of what got them there. They worked hard at the beginning and made it successful, and then there's an old phrase, isn't there, that if you go to a company and they've got a fountain at the front, a flagpole with their logo on it or an award or something outside, and their logo on the carpet in reception, then they're about to go bust. Because it's a bit harsh, obviously, because that could have all been done by very well-meaning people who work for the company. But I think the point is that if the leadership team are focusing on the bling, who's looking after the product development, the customer satisfaction, the value add, the people, the boring
Well, I think,
stuff.
it is that. If you've got time, no company in real startup, if you've got lots of funding and you're in startup phase, you may do all these things. But I think the point is that you've got resource and you've got time and you've got capacity to think about those things. Is that the thing you should be thinking about?
Have you heard the phrase, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, is it a fixation or a, you could do all those things very quickly, couldn't you? Put a flag up,
yeah.
Or is it about? Is it something deeper than that?
Exactly, they're not the problem. It's that if they are the symptoms of a broader underlying malaise. I was going to ask you if you'd heard the phrase "gentleman's hours." The joke we used to have with one of our clients when we were foretelling this. One day we'll be so rich we'll have gentleman's hours. So gentleman's hours where you're coming at 10 in the morning. You work till lunchtime, but then have a 2-hour lunch break. Yeah. So you do, and then really you want to knock off by about 3. So if in your organization you've become so, it just all happens and there's money aplenty everywhere, it's okay if you want to back off, as long as that's part of a succession plan and your success is following through and they're doing what you used to do. But the problem is if you haven't done that and the leadership team just start turning in a bit late, having 15 weeks holiday a year, and you never know when they're in or not. And there isn't somebody else taking control, then actually the whole business starts to think, well, what's the point? Why we're just here receiving the money because of maybe the product we set up in the past or the market we got a foothold in. That won't last forever. Someone should be using that time, while the sun is shining, to build the next market, product, spin-off, maybe entrepreneurship, and start trying new things, investing some of that money.
Well, I think you need to think about this before you get successful.
This is like when you sell the company, you put the value you want in an envelope and seal it.
Yeah. So I think you need to think about this. And I think you need to have mechanisms in place to bring you back almost to that startup phase. Okay. Will you indulge me in a biblical analogy?
Do I have any choice?
No. So the Israelites, ancient, Jewish people,
thank you
for the clarification, just in case.
But
they, anytime, they had a festival of booths where they had to go back
of booths,
or they had to go back to.
Is that not a department store?
Booths. Booths. But they had to go back to Jerusalem, and they had to live for a couple of days in basically a temporary shelter, like made of like a booth kind of thing, out of plants and things, to remind them of where they came from coming out of Egypt, wandering around the desert, living in the desert in tents and stuff. And it was to bring them back to that point, to remind them that actually.
Does that copy across into modern religions? Does Judaism still do a bit of that?
I don't know. They might. I don't know actually. They might. It's still one of the festivals, but they may celebrate it differently. But it's. It
reminds me a bit, in a very non-religious way, of the sort of Back to the Floor episode, series on telly, where the chief exec would go undercover and just work on the shop floor
and do that and feel what it's like again. And I think that's what you have to build in. Things that it's that important to remember your root, have some sort of cadence and mechanism that even if it's for a day or two, to bring you back to that, to realign you or recenter you as to what we're here for, what we're doing this for. Even if you're really successful, which is great, that's what you're in business for. But actually, you want to still make sure that, okay, am I just sitting in my office, ivory tower type of thing, or am I going out to meet my customers? Am I going around the shop floor? Am I talking to the people? Do I know the names of the people on the shop?
Have I still got my same ear to the ground that I had before? Do I know what the market wants from us and how we deliver it? Do I know what the people think?
And at one time, you'd be feeling this was so instinctive because you're in it all the time. You're like, yeah, and I've got to fix this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. That slowly fades as you become less and less involved in the day-to-day operations. So I think actually going back to that kind of like having that cadence of doing something is a way of safeguarding.
I think you've got to get away though from people that know you. So if you've got a small company, it's harder to do. You know, the back to the floor thing in WeWork, because the chief exec was able to be anonymous on the Tesco checkout or whatever it was. And I think we've talked before about how bad.
I've just got visions of you turning up in fancy dress tomorrow. Like, where's Dave? We've got this new starter.
Yeah, with my wig on.
Hi, Doris.
Oh, not that sort of thing. Oh, that's a whole new challenge you've set me there, coming in as Doris. Yeah, I don't think I could probably get over that. I was thinking more, we've talked before about the dangers of market research and asking friends and family and businesses, because they'll always be nice to you. Yeah. And I think the danger of being successful, it must be even worse for people who are, you know, properly moneyed successful. You just get these hangers-on around you and they're so sycophantic and supportive. No one's doing the emperor's new clothes thing. Yeah. So if you do fall into this trap and you start getting a little bit, you know, self-absorbed, narcissistic, ego projects, whatever, who's going to tell you? Yeah. I think you'd need someone really very kind to you, but in a cruel to be kind way, to really tell you. And maybe you wouldn't believe them.
Almost like you'd need some external consultants to come in who could.
You need a good non-exec.
Who are worldly wise and
I think
business savvy.
A good friend could also do the same job. It wasn't a pitch. Thank you very much for pulling me up on that.
But no, as I say, it's true. Like someone, you need someone who's going to speak. Not flatter you all the time, isn't it? You need someone who's going to speak.
Point out, it's the emperor's new clothes. You know, why are you doing that again? What is that project? Why are you moving offices? Because it's you get a nice corner office overlooking the view in the steel and glass building, and you went to a networking lunch where someone was. It's a bit like when you go to these charity dinners and there's this auction afterwards, and some business person locally will stump up a grand for a signed football shirt. You know, they don't need it, do they? But they just want to show off. And
I think you have to check yourself, because it's. I mean, I've been invited to a private dinner in Mayfair.
Just drop that in.
Well, yeah.
Where's my
circle? But it's great, you know. And I'm very honoured to have been invited. But you do have to check yourself, because I could feel it. I could feel the
flattered
thing going right. Okay, so I've got to.
I wonder how many of our contacts would come and have a dinner with us if we just chose somewhere swanky.
I know.
Like downtown Shrewsbury.
Probably more likely to come if we went to KFC, or any other fast food establishment.
Are available.
No.
Exactly. The other thing that struck me is about the vision, and we've had a couple of episodes talking about vision. One back in about episode 6 or whatever it was, and one more recently about the impact of AI on it. But I've actually been in a company before where the phrase was uttered, "I think we've achieved the vision." Now, surely the definition of the vision, if it's the North Star, that, you know, aim for the North Star, you might get to the moon. You're never going to get there. That's the whole point. The vision is so far-fetched. It's worthy and, you know, the principles are achievable, but you're not actually going to achieve the vision. So either you set the vision too easily to start with, which is fine. It's in steps and evolutions. But you don't get all the way there and say, there you go, done it then.
Yeah. We'll go home now.
Put your feet up. That's it. Yeah, go home now.
Shut the company.
Let you guys carry on.
You're all lost your jobs.
I've done my bit.
We've done it.
And that's where I do wonder that people who've put all the hard work, especially maybe they get burnt out and they feel they are deserving of a bit of a break, they do take the foot off the gas and they don't build the next step of the vision. They don't do the next R&D. They don't get the next investment in or take the next risk. And they could probably well within their rights to say, no, I've done that. But what they haven't done maybe is to put the successes in that have still got the hunger and the drive and the connection to the customers and the products and the people.
So I will confess to have not listened to the Reith Lectures.
Or ever, any year ever.
I didn't even know it was a thing until you mentioned it.
Right.
So,
well, I think the year before, a couple of years before, Mark Carney did some. He was very good. Lots of good people have done them. If you're not,
but it's more of a sort of Predator Badlands kind of vibe going on. But no, I do have an interest in the cultural sways things. But the whole kind of what I think there's a lot of people draw parallels between Rome and the current civilization.
We're reaching an epoch.
We're reaching an epoch, or
an inflection point.
A Rubicon.
Rubicon.
To use some Latin.
You just go and give it.
But interesting then how some of those things maybe actually as well, just because of the culture that we live in. So, I guess sort of bread and games and all that kind of stuff. We live in a very entertainment-based culture now. How that also can affect how things happen at work. The overall culture comes in and can start to have that, expectation of what people want to do in the workplace, entitlement,
Well, look at the extremes of someone like Google.
Yeah.
Unlike, say, someone like Amazon, you get the impression is a bit of a sweatshop, certainly in the warehouses. But at Google, where you hear about the very, very nice offices, I mean, ridiculously opulent offices. Salesforce, apparently. Yeah. We went to the HubSpot offices, didn't we? And we thought these are amazing. Yeah. We were told that the Salesforce offices down the road are 10 times better. Yeah. And the Google ones are even better than that. Yeah. But people lounging around and all the fish tanks and the 2 days of the week doing what
you want. Get there's an element of, okay, it's a bit of an arms race in terms of, well, we've got to do something better
to get the staff.
If they put a free lunch on, we've got to put a free lunch on, and then we've got to, So there's a little bit of that kind of thing to attract the talent. But I think as well, does that then? Do you start losing some of that?
Surely the arms race gets to a point where someone's got to say, "Stop! Oh, this is crazy." The only reason that we're making so much money in the face of Google is because we've got a monopoly on the advertising market or whatever, whichever phase you're looking at in their existence. It doesn't mean that we just employ those people and let them sit around all day.
Although I would like a thinking hammock. That's my Queen's Award flagpole.
That's your equivalent. If you get a thinking hammock,
I get a thinking hammock.
It's not a beer full of fridge.
Although it is kind of
beer full of fridge.
Fridge full of beer. Well, it is kind of practical as well. Because if you get your head below your feet, more blood is going to your head. Yeah. More oxygen, more thinking.
You could just hang you upside down.
Creativity. That would be easy.
I know, so that's the image we really want.
Yeah.
He's just coming to the office.
Yeah. What's he doing? Like a bat or something. Come on, he always does it. Exactly. Does this every Wednesday.
So that's your equivalent. Maybe then we should all be aware of what is the thing that would signify that we've lost the plot.
Yeah.
When has success gone to our head? We haven't put it into practice yet, but should one day. And this is your point. Maybe you should think about it before it happens.
Yeah. What are the safety valves that you're putting in? Yeah. That you're going to trigger to say, if I am really successful, and let's hope we all are, how do I keep grounded? How do I stay humble?
Keep grounded. Well, that's good anyway in life. But let's say you did want to just be completely, irresponsible and go off and spend all your money. As long as what you've left behind is a responsible action. You've given successes in place. You've built it for the future. You haven't taken all the money out so it can't survive. So anyway, that was what came to mind when I listened to Rutger Bregman talking about the rise and fall of Rome and Venice and so on. We might do one on his next episode. I don't think we're going to go through them all. But the next one was how big social change has often been driven by small groups of people.
Yep.
And I was thinking about that in the business sense. So stay tuned for whether that appears as a future topic.
Well, that's that classic business or organizational statistic that the square root of the number of people in the organization contribute something like 50% of the value.
Yeah, I've heard that stat before. And it's about size of organizations, that really, isn't it? So in a 4-person organization, that's right. 2 people deliver 2 because there's 4 of you. And it gets out of control very quickly if 10 people are doing half the work. And I can see that in a 100-person organization.
I think 100-person organization, there'll be 10 people that are doing 50% of the value. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So small groups of people make a lot of change. So we may come back to that. That was what we're good at. And if you are interested, go and check out the Reith Lectures, not just this year's one. If he's not your cup of tea, but there's lots of good stuff.
Do I need to cancel my order for my gold-plated suits?
What have you ordered? The flagpole and the carpet tiles with the logo.
Meg, cancel the flagpole.
Right, thanks for that. Thanks for indulging my choice of topic this week.
Very good.
And maybe you'll learn about the Reith Lectures. Who knows?
Who knows?
Tell me next week. You suggest films to me. I suggest some
highbrow culture. Yeah. Gosh.
Lecture. Thank you very much for putting up with us again and listening to another episode. If you made it this far, then you really are one of the very special few. Thank you very much. Please pass on the word about what we're doing to other people you know in businesses, and good luck with your own.